Hello, this is Dr. Jaynes, and this will be the third installment of reverse engineering UFO propulsion systems. And today we're going to talk about stealth technology and how it's related to UFO propulsion systems. And we have a book here, UFOs and Anti-Gravity, A Piece for the Jigsaw Puzzle by Leonard G. Cramp. There's actually 3 books in the series. I think the first one's probably the best one. But these are definitely very good books, definitely worthwhile reading. And we're going to look a little bit about what they have to say about radar. Now, what is radar? Radar is something they use in the military, and they use it for weather, and they use it for tracking airplanes. And of course, on the highway, the cops use it to try to see how fast you're going. What it is a device that sends out a radio wave, and that radio wave goes out from the transmitter, if it's a radar station or whatever, and bounces off the target, and then it comes back. And what stealth technology is an attempt to make the not return to the radar station from the sender. So, for instance, if you study bats or dolphins, they use sonar, which is a similar type of thing, where they send out clicks, high-frequency clicks, and it bounces off of the bugs or fish or whatever, and then they can hear where they are based on the reflections. Radar is similar to that. They have to have a very high power transmitter. Of course, you have the radar range equation. Power drops to 1 over r squared as it goes out. It hits the object. The object has a radar cross-section, and that radar cross-section determines how much of the signal is reflected. Now, if you can make that so the object absorbs it or doesn't reflect it back toward the place that's listening for it, then it'll be hard to see it, because you can only see it by listening for the reflections, listening for the returns. And so radar cross-section is critical for stealth technology. And so we're going to talk about UFOs, and are they stealth objects? And the other thing is that couple of these reports, like let's look at this one where they have, this is on page 143, I believe, and it was in 1950 something, 1959, non-stop flight to Detroit, American airline flight, and 3 UFOs accompanied flying disc, luminous flying disc accompanied the airplane for quite some time. And the pilot said he did not see them on the radar. Now, so are the UFOs stealth? Are they absorbing the radio waves? Is the propulsion system absorbing it? Or are they purposely making their ships so they absorb radio waves? Now, usually something that's an absorber is, for instance, you have the radar absorbing material that they use in the anechoic chambers or other things, and it's kind of a foamy type substance. It's semiconductive. So if you study transmission line theory, when you send a wave down the transmission line, if it's not terminated properly, if it doesn't absorb the wave, it will reflect back. And it's the same idea with radar signals. You send out a radar signal and it reflects back if it's not absorbed. So you want to try to absorb that signal. So the question is there like a plasma field around the UFO that's absorbing the radiation? Or are they purposely putting absorbing material? But absorbing material, a lot of the discs from eyewitnesses look like they're metallic, and they're round in shape. Now, some of the stealth fighters, like the F-111, has these weird angles, and that's done on purpose to make the radio waves or the radar waves reflect at different angles so they don't come back to the observer. So UFOs don't really seem like they're purposely trying to be stealth. So is the stealth property something that's can tell us something about the propulsion system of the UFO? Let's look at another. Let's see, that was on page 143, and so we have another incident on 197 where they have a ground radar. Well, one thing I want to say about the other radar is that it is possible also that the other instance, there was a commercial airliner. I'm not sure how good of a radar they have on there, but sometimes they have something called TCAS, where that depends on the other planes having transponders. It's not really a radar, it's just talking to the other planes, so obviously some kind of flying saucer would not have a transponder on it. And so if they were confusing whether it was a radar or transponder, that could have been an issue. Another thing is that some of the airplanes have weather radar, and maybe weather radar isn't really too great at picking out other airplanes, especially if they don't have a transponder. So that puts a little bit of question on this, but this other case is more interesting, where it was a ground-based radar, so it was a real radar. They said they're tracking this red light, changed to white, hovered, oscillated, and sped away. They said the strange thing was when the light oscillated, the image on the radar scope flared up, returned to its original size, and then disappeared. So this looks like the propulsion system is actually doing something to absorb the radio waves. Now we know that some of the pictures that we see of flying saucers, they're kind of luminous and they look like they have a plasma around them. Now anyone who studied plasma physics or tokamak fusion physics knows that when you're trying to heat up a plasma, like with a gyrotron or something, when you launch the wave into it, the plasma is semiconductive, and so it absorbs the radio waves. And so if you had a plasma field around the ship, something that was creating intense plasmas, like I think we mentioned in the last video, then this is a possibility that when that plasma field becomes more intense, then they absorb the radio waves and make the ship more stealth-like. So we have some pictures of glowing UFOs. So glowing UFOs would indicate that there's probably a plasma field around it. And the plasma could be very well absorbing heat radio waves, and it would seem that probably, why would you have a plasma field around the ship if it wasn't part of the propulsion system? They're not trying to, create some kind of neon sign or something to announce that they're here, probably. So it's probably a plasma created by either intense radiation from the ship, ionizing radiation is ionizing the air, or possibly a partial vacuum and high voltage around the ship, as we talked about in the last video. Another interesting thing that I came across is that I was looking at some of Hutchison stuff where we had some plastic cups that were flying around, and it appeared that the field becomes attached to the object. So maybe the fields, the space-time fields, become changed, the properties change with the intense electromagnetic fields, cause it to go through a phase change, or maybe the material itself goes through a phase change where maybe it absorbs RF more efficiently, or maybe space-time is absorbing RF. It's something that definitely needs to be looked into. But when I talk about a phase change, a lot of people are familiar with, if you have something like ice and you heat it up, once you get past a critical temperature, ice turns into water. And then if you heat it up some more, water turns into steam. And then if you heat it up a lot, it would turn into a plasma. Some say that's the fourth state of matter. But there's actually other phase transitions that can happen when you have chaos going into order. For instance, when you have a superconductor, and a superconductor conducts electricity with no resistance, but then when you heat it up above the critical temperature, it becomes a regular conductor. It has a lot of resistance. But it also can go through a phase transition. For instance, if you had a superconductor and then you put a very intense magnetic field on it, that magnetic field can cause that superconductor to also become non-superconducting, to go through a phase transition. And I'll probably talk about this more later in other videos. And so I think that's pretty much all I want to say now. It appears that flying saucers have possibly some kind of plasma field around them, or some kind of material state change that happens when the intense RF fields or pulse magnetic fields interact with matter to create something that causes the UFO to behave in a stealth way, stealth according to radar terminology, where it absorbs rays. So anyway, this is just another piece of the jigsaw puzzle, flying saucer UFO propulsion systems. And this is Dr. Jaynes, and until next time, keep on searching for the truth. Thank you.